Welcome to the Steps Back to Me podcast. On this show, we talk about all things that empower you to take control of your life. I'm your host, Deb J. We're on a mission to provide guidance, emotional support, and practical tools that will inspire you on your path to living your best life. My guest on today's episode is Vanessa Cardenas. Vanessa is a betrayal recovery specialist, a distinguished C-suite executive, mentor, coach, speaker, and instructor. As a visionary founder and CEO of Understanding Ear, LLC, Vanessa dedicates her life's work to empowering individuals on their journey of healing from betrayal, embracing their authenticity, and discovering love and happiness on their terms. Her mission is to foster wholeness and freedom, one interaction at a time, and she brings this passion to every aspect of her work. Welcome, Vanessa.
Deb, thank you so much for having me. So I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Your audience is just going to be absolutely enthralled with what we talk about. Love it.
I am excited too. Your mission to foster wholeness and freedom fits beautifully into my vision for our audience. So, what can you add to the conversation?
Well, we need to go back just a little bit, just a ways little bit, just to give a little idea of where I come from and why I do what I do. Because a betrayal recovery specialist, I get a lot of very weird looks. And then my husband also gets a lot of weird looks like, what's going on with these two? No judgment whatsoever. But yes, we do experience that. And in all honesty, nobody studies betrayal unless they've gone through it. And boy, did I go through it. I hit the ground from the Empire State Building. I just fell off and hit that ground really hard with 3 words that my husband said to me that I never thought he would say. I've met someone, and my whole world shattered in an instant, like Thanos in the Avenger movies where he snaps his fingers and everybody just turns into dust. That was me. And I didn't realize it at the time, but his comment was more of a cry for help. It was more of a, hey, you need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to our relationship. We've become comfortable. We've become complacent. We're micromanaging our household, our marriage, our kids, everything. And we lost sight of that intoxication, of that love. You know, when you first meet somebody and you get those butterflies in your stomach, well, we didn't have butterflies anymore. And he said these 3 words to me, not anticipating the reaction that he got from me, because I completely fell apart. And I was a C-suite executive. I had a psychology degree. I should be able to get myself out of this. And I could not. I really, really struggled. And I kept it very close to the chest. I did not reach out for help. And that was my biggest regret, that I allowed myself to suffer in silence because we didn't even share it with our family. Our children knew about it, obviously, because they were in the house. But other than that, no one else knew about it because we kept it close. We knew that if we shared it with others, we would get the judgment. And I didn't want that. And I know that there are people that are well-intended. They have the best intentions, but they say the wrong things. They truly, truly do. My favorite and what I say to my clients now, and it feels so good when I say it because I feel their release. I tell my clients after they have told me their life story, their betrayal story, their story, and they descend into that darkness. And I tell them, I've got you. I've got you. And sometimes that's all we need to hear, that someone else understands, hears me, sees me, and they've got me. And I can release all of that emotion. Because when you go through betrayal, all the emotions are there. It's a grieving process. Unfortunately, it's not like death, because with death, they're gone. They're still with you, but they're gone. But with betrayal, They're right in front of you and they're a stranger to you. You do not recognize them, nor do you recognize yourself. And then you are faced with a very hard decision, whether to stay. And your mind is Swiss cheese. You don't have the clarity to make that decision. But when you get to that clarity and you make that decision for yourself, I am going to stay or I am going to go. You then live in that decision. And boy, there's something glorious about it. I know that it's extremely painful. When you stay, it's still filled with some doubt. Will this happen again? Will I do something? Will they do something? All the doubt rushes in. But then also if you decide to go and you decide to divorce or separate, then you're also at times filled with doubt. Did I do the right thing? Is this right for my family? And doubt on both ends, whether you stay or go, oh, she's wicked. She becomes a nasty chick voice on your shoulders of, did you do the right thing? Did you do the right thing? What if this happens? What if that happens? And you descend into that darkness again. And it's so important to have a circle around you of those people that can tell you, I've got you.
Wow, that's really powerful. I do want to ask something. Is it important the kind of people that you have around you or the kind of messages those people give you? Because, you can have a group that is commiserating in misery, and then you can have a group that understands and encourages you forward on a journey to healing.
Yes, it's very challenging to get those around you, but you will know. You will know those who make you feel empowered, make you feel good. If you've got somebody in your circle that just every time you see them, you feel drained, you feel overwhelmed, they're not the right person for you at the moment. They might be the closest friend, the longest friend you've ever had, but their energy towards you in this particular situation is just not good for you. And you need to be able to have the strength to say, we need to pause. I need to figure out what's going on in my relationship, which at this moment in time is the most important thing.
Right.
It's not your relationship with your partner. Don't misunderstand me. It's your relationship with yourself. You need to understand the relationship that you have with yourself before you can interact with everybody else. And you need to surround yourself with people that encourage that will step up when you need that little extra support and will step back when you need to regroup and rethink and really sit in stillness with yourself to love yourself again, to trust yourself again. And you can't do those if you have all this chatter going on around you. It's distracting more than anything else. And that inner peace. And it's the relationship with yourself that's first. Then it's the relationship with your partner. Again, whether you decide to stay or go. And then it's your relationship with everybody else. So for me, my guidance, especially when a woman contacts me right out of the gate and says, I just found out. I haven't even spoken to my partner yet. I just found out. And usually most women, a lot of women find out, regrettably so, at their GYN appointment because at a standardized STD screening, and the doctor walks in with a chart and says, I'm sorry to tell you, Mrs. Cardenas, you have an STD. And your first reaction is, wait a second, that's not my chart, right? And then your second reaction is, I've been faithful. What are you talking about? I've been faithful. And then the realization, what are you telling me? And suddenly you're snapped your fingers and you've disappeared. I mean, you just descended into the darkness. And when women reach out to me right at that pivotal moment, one of my first suggestions is what I refer to as toothpaste, because once you let it out of the tube, really hard to get it back. So I know our first instinct is like that Kelly Underwood song, take a Louisville Slugger to both headlights. We want to take control. But when we start sharing with everybody around us, we then take on all of that judgment. So my first suggestion is always just a pause and sit in it for a couple of moments. As painful as it is, it's so much more painful dealing with the judgment of everyone else. And you really want to be able to sit in that, and you take all the time you need. There is no timeline. There is no timeline on betrayal or recovery from betrayal. The number one question asked on Google is, how long does it take to heal from intimate partner betrayal? As if you could type in, I've been married this long, I have this number of kids, this is how much money I have in the bank, and it goes, and it calculates, and it goes, in 92 days, you'll be healed.
Yeah. AI for betrayal recovery.
Exactly. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately, because every single relationship is unique as your fingerprint, completely so. So again, the most important thing right out of the gate is your relationship with yourself.
And that is profound, because too many people forget that. Well, I don't even think we forget. We react before we take the moment to think or remember. Before our brains can kick in, we tend to react. And so that's a really good message to remind people of. That you need to, I like the way you say, to take a pause, take a breath. You're at a yield sign. You don't give up, but you stop for a minute. That's really, really good. Truthfully, I had not heard the term betrayal recovery specialist before. I've heard all kinds of different coaches. I have learned so much on this journey I'm on myself. So how do you become a betrayal recovery specialist?
Great question. A lot of studying, but definitely self-studying. I descended into all of the greats, and there are a lot of greats that handle infidelity and betrayal. I soaked it all in, and I have been a perpetual student ever since. But I've done several different certifications, both in trauma, because betrayal is a form of trauma. And we need to recognize that, and we need to honor that, because sometimes there are situations where some people recognize it as trauma and others do not. And they think that it's not trauma, and then they become caught in, well, what exactly is it? And that can be very, very challenging. So I did a whole trauma certification as well, which was fascinating. And as you're going through the process, again, nobody studies betrayal unless they've gone through it. And as I went through it, I discovered a lot of things that really resonated with me. And the one that was really, really profound for me personally, and this was the pivotal moment for me. This is when things changed in my relationship. When I realized that though the betrayal was done to me, it wasn't about me.
Again.
Yes. Though the betrayal was done to me, it wasn't about me.
That's hard to take in, Vanessa. It's so hard to take in.
It is, without a doubt. Had that been said to me on day 3, on week 3, even on month 3, like, this is all my fault. I've done this. And I took it all on. I took everything on because we're women. We're designed to take everything on. Yes, hear me roar. And wow, this is a problem and I need to fix me. And that was not the case. I didn't need to fix me. I needed to find myself again. I needed to love myself again. And I needed to trust myself again. And once I had those in place, sky's the limit. Sky's absolutely the limit. And I made a promise. I heard a wonderful Brené Brown quote, and I'm going to butcher it, and I so apologize, but she said something to the effect, to be the survival guide for someone else. And I was like, yes, yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I am going to accelerate someone else's healing because I've already been through the journey. I already know the steps, and we can take the steps together. And I've got you. And I love it.
That is a true person who can walk with you, someone that you can put your trust in and can fly the flag of hope for you until you can pick it up and fly it yourself. And you need those people in your life. We're talking about intimate relationships, but I also know that you deal with betrayal in more than one area.
There's lots of different types of betrayal. And the three that I focus on, again, is intimate partner betrayal. Then there's self-betrayal, which is self-sabotage, where we sabotage ourselves. And women, oh, we do this to ourselves all the time. And then there's betrayal in business. Yeah, you might not have the language for it, but yes, this happens when you're working in an environment and somebody takes your idea and runs with it. That's a form of betrayal. Very or a situation where your boss, asks you to do something very specific, you do it, and then they take the credit for it. And for me, what happened was, and I discovered through my training, through my clinicals and everything else, was that the reason that this hit me particularly hard, I mean, I descended into darkness and I was on autopilot for months. Not only did I need help and not ask for help, but I was suffering. I was suffering terribly and I couldn't understand why. I had a psychology degree. Why was this bothering me so much? Why did I descend? And I realized that throughout my childhood, I had these little micro betrayals, these little things that were upsetting to me, but I didn't have the language to be able to express my hurt. And I diminished my hurt. And we know it as parents now, and as I'm a parent, that we minimize our children's experiences. And when we do that, we don't allow all of the emotions to move through them. They get trapped in there. Think of a situation when you were a child. Most people immediately remember something bad. It's very uncommon that somebody remembers something good about their childhood unless you prompt them, tell me something good about your childhood. Whereas if you just, tell me something about your childhood, they descend into that darkness. We gravitate towards the negative because we remember those things. Why? Because they're trapped. Our body has become the coffin for all of these emotions. And that's why it's so important to allow them to move through, to reframe a situation. May I share an example with you? My Uncle Marty. I adored my Uncle Marty. Uncle Marty was the best. And I was 8, 9, 10 years old. And every time he came to visit, it was only once a year. He would come with a gift. The gift wasn't important. It was him. And he would get down on his knee and he'd look me right in the eye. Vanessa, tell me about school. What's going on for you? And he would just, I loved it. Why? Because he saw me and he heard me and he paid attention. And I soaked it all in. I loved it. I loved my Uncle Marty. And then there was a year that he came and he was irritated and he didn't remember my name and he didn't come with a gift. And I was just beside myself. I couldn't understand. What did I do? Was I a bad girl? Did my mother tell him something about me? Did he find out that I didn't get a good grade on something? Why doesn't he love me like he did? And I took it all in and I just descended into it and it bothered me for years. I couldn't understand why he was different towards me. And then when he passed away, I heard a word that I had never heard before. Dementia. Alzheimer's. And now as an adult and knowing these words, I could think back and reframe this and think to myself, that moment in time was probably so frightening for him because he didn't know who I was. He had descended into fear. And here I was not understanding and no adult around me was explaining it to me. And I turtled in and I took it all in. All those feelings became right here, right in the chest. My body became the coffin. And once I had that moment, that epiphany of, wait a second, he didn't remember me. He had dementia, Alzheimer's, words I hadn't heard before, but now I know what they are. Had nothing to do with me. Oh my goodness. Yes. Freedom from that. But the things that we hold on to as kids, as children, think of it like the bully in school who took your lunch money. Maybe he had an abusive father at home and he was taking it out. Maybe he didn't have dinner or breakfast and lunch was the only food that he was eating. There are so many different aspects. We do not know what's going on in other people's lives, but we take it in. We internalize it. We think it's our fault, that it's something that we did. And then once again, although it was done to you, it wasn't about you.
So in some cases, a victim mentality, because then everything after that builds on that wound and it's all about what's been done to us.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I wish we had a lot more time to continue this conversation because you brought up so many things that I just want to dive into. But we are going to stop there for today and say thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming on and for sharing. And I can feel your heart in wanting to share with other people, just like me, just wanting to let people know that there is a future, there is a light, and there are things you can do and steps you can take and people you can reach out to get some help or to ask questions that you may not know the answer to. So thank you so much.
My honor. Thank you so much, Deb, for having me.
I appreciate it. So tell me, where can our audience find you?
I am all over the socials. Absolutely, very much so. But the best place to find me and see all of my work is understandingear.com.
Before we end this conversation, I want you to tell our audience where the name comes from. I love that.
It comes from of all places, a Stephen King quote. And I condensed it and it says, in short, the most important things to say are the hardest things to say, not for the want of a teller, but for the want of an understanding ear.
And thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you joining us today and sharing your wealth of information and knowledge and tools even that people can use to move into this new phase of their life that they're building or rebuilding or reclaiming or reinventing for themselves. Thanks again, Vanessa.
Thank you.